and welcome to the edition of our show. My name is Business. As we always say, business means money. Stability and business mean a lot of money. We're here from Cairo Broadcasting and checking our development weekly. And of course, a lot of developments are taking place by the day. Egypt's inflation rate dropped to the lowest level in nearly a decade last month. Official figures showed on Saturday as cheaper food offered respite to consumers squeezed by IMF-backed reforms. The annual inflation rate was 2.4% in October compared with 17.5% a year earlier. The Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics, CAPMA, said that the state body said that the decrease was due to a drop in the cost of household items such as food and drink. The increase in agricultural production led to a drop in prices of fruit and vegetables, which in turn affected food prices that make up about 40% of consumer costs. Cairo-based economist Imam Nigm told the news, and the Egyptian pound's recovery against the US dollar has also contributed to the inflation rate slowing down. And the British government informed airlines that it no longer advises against travel to Sharm el-Sheikh Airport. Minister of the Middle East and North Africa, Andrew Morrison, said that UK has been clear that flights to Sharm el-Sheikh will resume when the security situation permits. And he said today, I'm pleased to announce that lifting of the current restrictions, and we will continue to work closely with our partners in Egypt, he said. British Ambassador to Egypt, Sir Geoffrey Adams, said his announcement comes after close cooperation between aviation security experts in the UK and Egypt, and he said that we'll work closely with airlines that wish to resume flights. Hello, we have online Mr. Walid Battouti, former advisor to the Minister of Tourism. Hello, sir. Hello, Mr. Battouti? Hello, can you hear me? Mr. Walid Battouti, can you hear me? We have a problem, technical problem that we'll be solving, and we resume our call again. And more news, the Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources said that as part of the program of work to accelerate the development of new wells on production, the Silva well started in Phase 9B in the West Delta, deep concession area in the Mediterranean, production natural gas at a rate of 60 to 80 million cubic feet per day in early November. After the evaluation of the well, which is the third to be put on production within a month after the wells Safir East and East Swan, which were put on production last October at a production rate of up to 170 million cubic feet per day. A report issued by the Ministry of Petroleum, the exploration wells Baltim Southwest 1 and Baltim Southwest 2 in the Nile Delta region on the map of production rates of up to about 190 million cubic feet of gas per day and about 1,300 barrels condensate per day. This discovery was achieved by the mid-gas concession within the South Baltim development contract at a depth of 25 meters and an area of 18 kilometers away from Nidoko 11. Are we back again with Mr. Walid Battouti? Hello, sir.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Pleased to have you this time on the phone.
Yes, I can barely hear you. So if you could raise your voice, that would be much appreciated.
Yes, I'm aware of this problem. Okay, let's just talk about the resumption of the British traveling tours to Egypt. Is it possible to say that the resumption of the British flights to the beginning is the beginning of a new phase, witnessing closer British tourist flights to all and more British flights to more Egyptian airports?
Well, if I heard you right, you're talking about the British tourism returning back to Egypt, and the announcement that they will open the charter flights back to Sharm el-Sheikh. Of course, this is going to increase the number of British clientele who would like to come to Egypt. They're used to come to Egypt in big numbers, and the one thing that was holding them is to buy a package, and the package usually include the flight. In order to come on scheduled flights or a regular flight, that was very expensive for them, and they used to buy a 1 week holiday or 2 weeks holiday, and they used to come in big numbers. Of course, when this happens, it increased, and then just by incident or by luck, let's put it this way, Denmark announced just yesterday that the guy who have done the Russian plane out of Sharm el-Sheikh, he was Danish with a Lebanese origin, and they announced that themselves. So also it shows that this is an outside terrorism that it's been planned and done in Egypt. Anyway, all of these things that is in the good side of Egypt. Add to this the exhibit of King Tut that is in London now. Of course, this will aggravate all the feelings of those who is missing Egypt, and you know, the British people will used to come every summer, and maybe they come once in the summer, once in the winter. I've known for a long time British people, they used to come twice a year to Egypt, sometimes in the summer, sometimes in the winter, sometimes they do both. This is going to open all the gates, and this is going to add to the improvement that is happening over here in Egypt with tourism. Bear in mind, thank God, tourism is some sort of booming in Egypt now. We have new markets, but it's bringing new numbers. Everybody wants to buy. And bear in mind another thing, also I believe it's in the good side, the good news that the big British tour operator that went bankruptcy about 2 months ago, it's already been bought by a Chinese investors. So also the investors, they want to, make back their money. And one of the fastest destination of making money was Egypt. So definitely they will reconsider the destination Egypt and the market Egypt. I know for sure that the exhibit of King Tut being in England, and as you know that a few days ago it was the anniversary of the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun.
Yes.
By two British men, Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon. Lord Carnarvon did the finance and Howard Carter did the work. So they did this, plus the world travel market. Egypt was a winner in the world travel market. Her Excellency Minister Rania Al-Mashat, she was nominated for Egypt, one of the very big prizes over there. All the travel businessmen who went there, owner of travel companies, they since a very long time, they come back with a positive feedback. They did not look for people as much as people were coming, looking for the Egyptian wing or the Egyptian section. So
Yes.
all of these things are adding to this, the stability that we have in economy, the stability that we have in security, the good reputation, the positive news that has been coming about Egypt. Every now and then, we just recently had Opera Aida. It was done on the West Bank of Luxor. Lots of very good, positive news about Egypt. All of this, when you put it together and adds up together, the improvement that we're doing in security, the improvement that we're doing in economy, all of these good news, when you mix them together, it adds up and it gives you a good result, and it gives you pluses to the destination. Definitely, all of this will help Egypt.
Yes. Before you go, another question. Like these days, we see celebrities coming. I'm not saying the name, but if you're just accompanying them, would you please tell us about the celebrities that you're accompanying these days? And they're inviting a group of their friends, like 60, Kate,
If I heard you right, I believe you're talking about celebrities coming to Egypt. The latest one, she was here with one of my best friends, and he's one of your guests that comes a lot on Nile TV International, Mr. Sharif Sami. He was with one of the latest celebrities that she came and celebrated her 33rd birthday, and she invited all her friends. That tells you that people consider Egypt as their destination, and they want to come and celebrate. It was private. It's a private destination for the celebrity, and she chose to do her birthday here in Egypt, and she kind of put it first in discreet because, celebrities would like to have their holiday without any paparazzi, without any media, nothing. They want to enjoy the country itself. They want to enjoy the sites, and as far as I know, that she wanted to enjoy the Temple of Karnak, the Temple of Luxor, Valley of the Kings, Valley of the Queens, Abu Simbel, Siwa, name it, the whole 9 yards. And I heard from my colleagues that the celebrity says that whoever is not coming to Egypt is wasting his time. People should come to Egypt, and she promised that when she goes home, she's going to tell all her friends and all the co-workers to consider Egypt immediately, as it is definitely a safe destination, and people should not listen to the ugly fake news that try to badmouth Egypt, or even every now and then the things that comes on social media.
Yeah.
All of this is considered under fake news and fake media.
Yes.
I hope every Egyptian takes this as a responsibility, and we all share positive news about our country.
Yeah.
And definitely we are all the winners, because the more hard currency coming into the country, the more things are getting a lot better in Egypt, inshallah.
Yes.
Long live Egypt.
Well, Mr. Walid Batuti, we're waiting for you next time with us to talk more, to shed more light on what's going on, and of course the exhibition of the gold mask, and what we're expecting and what happened in that. Thank you very much for being with us. Back again to Money Means Business with our guest, and our guest is Dr. Ashraf Saleh, Professor of Economics and Finance. Welcome, sir, with us.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. As usual, we ask the question, we're not delving into our subject, but in a nutshell, every week we see developments taking place on the local scene, of course linked internationally. But how do you see Egypt this week, financially, economically, in a nutshell, quickly, and then we just talk about things in details.
Okay, first of all, I think that Egypt has made a tremendous improvement in the last couple of months, especially with the start of 2019. I mean, all the economic indicator has been doing quite well. We can see an improvement in the GDP or in the economic growth rate. We see a huge decrease in the inflation rate. We see an improvement in the unemployment rate, and more and above, we see a huge deterioration in the US dollar versus the Egyptian pounds, which has witnessed more than around 2 Egyptian pounds in just a couple of months.
Talking about the dollar, because of course many cares, like you're traveling, you're buying, you're importing goods from abroad in the dollar, and then the dollar, when it jumped, all that jump, it just was a problem for many, and still is, of course, because it's still high, although it's going down steadily. How much do you think it will reach?
How much it would reach? This needs a superstitious. It doesn't need an economist. I mean, nobody can
depends on the market.
I mean, every single circumstance is just showing that if things went like this, the US dollar will go down further and further, but nobody knows. Maybe out of suddens, things would go on. I mean, currently, there are many constraints on the imports, especially of the luxurious items. What if the Egyptian government, out of sudden, release some of the constraint and the demand for these kind of luxurious products start to rise again? So this will pull up and will take the US dollars towards, again, I mean, I've heard you a couple of minutes ago, and this is one of the info that I didn't know really about, that the British government started to rebans traveling to Sharm el-Sheikh. One of the attributable to the decrease in the exchange rate of the US dollar versus the Egyptian pound is the tourism, or it's the amount of touristics that has been deeply increasing in the last couple of months, whether it's a charter or regular flights. I mean, we see a lot of tourism coming back to the country. So this is, from one side, helping in pulling the US dollar down, but nobody can still guarantee that anything that may occur, but European Union or non-European Union country will take dollars, or US dollars will take it once again up. So I'm sorry, I don't really can guess how much would it go further.
Speculation.
Yeah, speculation. I mean, but unfortunately, speculations is a matter of superstitions.
Definitely. Let me just read part of what we have here. It's like they talk about the inflation going the lowest in nearly a decade. Egypt's inflation rate dropped to the lowest level in nearly a decade last month, as official figures showed Saturday, as cheaper food offered respite to consumers squeezed by IMF-backed reforms. The annual inflation rate was 2.4% in October, compared to 17.5% a year earlier. The Central Agency of Public Mobilization and Statistics said. The state body said that the decrease was due to a drop in the cost of household items such as food and drink. The increase in agricultural products led to a drop in prices of fruit and vegetables, which in turn affected food prices that make up about 40% of consumer costs, the Cairo-based economist, one of the economists said. And he said that the Egyptian pound's recovery against the US dollar was also contributed to the inflation rate slowing down. He also expects that the central bank to cut interest rates because of the weaker price pressures. Inflation has skyrocketed to 33% in 2017, following subsidy cuts and the devaluation of the Egyptian pound. Well, let me stop here. That, talking about also the interest rates, all these things together in order to bring inflation down, and how does that affect the citizen? If we talk about macroeconomics and microeconomics that touch those, the citizen directly.
So, but first of all, just allow me to elaborate
Definitely,
that
please do.
the number or the figure that you have just
Yes,
told us,
yes.
it's the monthly figure, not the yearly figure. I
Okay.
mean, 2.4, this is 1 month recorded, compared to 17.5, this is used to be the last year. But the average now is I mean, it's about 9.5% up to 7.8%, which means, roughly speaking, 8 point something percent. This would not really be quite definite until the end of December 2019. But yes, the exchange rate has, the inflation rate has been decreased very well in the last couple of months. When it comes to the interest rate is a very big bomb, if you allow me, in Egypt. Unfortunately, you fell in between two parts. From a side, the Egyptian has been for ages knew that the best thing is to deposit their money in the bank, get the simple interest-free rate, risk-free rate, rate of return, and doing nothing. On the other hand, with this high interest rate that has been prevailed in the market for the last couple of months, I mean, recently, yes, the central bank has made some monetary applied some monetary tools and decreased the interest rate. However, from a side, when you give the depositor 15 or 16%, this means that you're going to lend with 20%. I mean, so the banks can cover the difference in between the interest that he pays to the depositor and the interest for the lenders. From one side, so there is all, I mean, you can see that all around the world, the maximum rate that you can see is 1-2% maximum. Even there are some countries, when you deposit your money in a bank, it ends up by you paying something like a commission, which means it's a negative interest rate. So what if something like this has been applied in the Egyptian markets? I mean, out of sudden, the central bank decided to decrease the interest rate hugely to just facilitate the investment, facilitate the borrowing, and induce the people to withdraw their money and invest.
Okay, what if exactly what you say? It's a very good point. Some people don't know how to invest. Someone, let's say, like a widow, that, got some money and she knows nothing in
some
life.
people who lived in the Gulf region for a couple of years came up with some liquidity, and then the safest issue is just to put them in a bank and earn
get a high interest rate and
yes,
live with
this
that.
is absolutely right.
And then this happens, and then everybody withdraws their money.
I mean, let me answer the question in a different manner.
Okay.
One of the attributable of the decrease that occurred recently in the US dollars exchange rate towards Egyptian pounds is the remittances of the Egyptians living abroad, which has increased tremendously. So, do you have any idea why it increased? It increased because those people who are living abroad decided to invest much more in the real estates in the Egyptian markets.
Yeah.
So when they decided to invest more in the real estates, they started to transfer their money from the country that they are living, working in, to the Egyptians. With this huge amount of US dollar coming to the country, the US dollar fell down. So can we assume that if the central bank decided to decrease the interest rate, that the depositors are going to withdraw their money and start on investing maybe in a real estate or something like this? Again, this is a very dynamic, because a very big portion of the Egyptian nations rely on the interest rates. So I assume this is one of the things that, if happen, it should happen gradually. You should have something like investment center that try to help the Egyptians free of charge on how to invest and the best investment tools and technicalities, and maybe the rise of the mutual funds by the government. So the mutual funds, it's the fund that collects individuals' deposit and then invested with an investment manager expertise. So I assume before the central bank has to do something like this, it has to find all the support and all the backup of the Egyptian government as a whole. Otherwise, this is one of the things that cannot be done out of sudden, unfortunately.
Definitely. And this touches, people. Then again, to the question we talked about, now, with the inflation going down and all that, of course, that depend on other variables. How do you see it, the macroeconomic sense and the microeconomics that touches the right way the citizen and his life?
Okay. Unfortunately, I will answer the question indirectly.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, there are many, many, many reasons that led the US dollars to go down. I mean, we said one of them is the remittances of the Egyptians
Yes.
living abroad. The other one is the improvement of the economic indicator in generally.
Yes.
GDP increased from 5.3 up to 5.6 with expectation to reach 5.9%, which is a huge number for the Egyptian economy since a very long period of time. It's one of the things that people don't know. I mean, some people will definitely ask me every now and then, what are you specialized in? I mean, when you say that the GDP or the gross domestic product, which is all the service and product produced in Egypt, either by Egyptians or foreign living in Egypt in a whole year. So they keep on asking me, what is your specialization? What is the main contributor of the GDP? I mean, since 2013 and a little bit afterwards, up to today, the majority of the GDP, of the Egyptian GDP, is attributable to service, which means we are no longer an agricultural country. We are, no, actually, agriculture sector is losing parts for the service. Industrial is as well. So the boomer, the big player, the sole player is the service, reaching around 48% of the over Egyptian GDP, which means this is one of the things that definitely the Egyptian government should play a better eye. I mean, transportations, telecommunication, real estates, insurance, everything, all of these sectors contribute to the GDP growth. The second main reasons behind why the US dollar has been deteriorating is the high credit rating which has been granted to Egypt since the many improvement that has been either taken in the political or the macroeconomical era. These things has led to a very or a better credit rating, and the credit rating, when it turns to be a little bit higher to the Egyptian government, this will induce definitely, and this is what really happened, the foreigners to reinvest more in Egypt. These kinds of investment are not the foreign direct investment. These are the foreign indirect investments. I mean, this money comes to be invested in foreign exchange. This money comes to invested in industries, in the back doors of many services, and so on and so forth. One thing else that attributes the deterioration of the US dollar was the availability of foreign currency in the banks. I mean, you can remember what happened after, in 2013, we've returned to the fixed exchange rate, but after we've been floating since 2002. But due to what really happens with the revolutions and the decrease in the foreign reserves in the central banks it decreased almost from 35 billions to around 13 billions in a couple of years. So we went back to the fixed exchange rate regime until the IMF and the World Bank forced us to re-float the exchange rate in 3rd of November 2016. If you can remember, during this period from 2013 to 2016, when anybody tried to travel abroad, there used to be a limitation on the amount of US dollar that can be used, either with your credit card or withdrawing from the banks, and all of the constraints we've been witnessing. Right now, I think there is a very huge availability of the foreign currency in the bank, and this is also one of the things that attributed to the decrease or deterioration of the exchange rate.
Yeah.
Moreover, Suez Canal revenues, which increased in the last quarter of a year, has also contributed to the decrease of the exchange rate. That's it, maybe. Yeah, I mean, this used to be the most significant issue that helps to do. And also, well, this is one of the things I'm not sure whether I have to mention it or not, but the last portion of the IMF or of the loan also helped to for the depreciation of the US dollar versus the Egyptian pounds.
Okay, you said the foreign indirect investment.
Yes.
What can we do to encourage the FDI? Instead of having only foreign indirect investment, we want also foreign direct investment.
Yeah, maybe a couple of years ago, I used to look at the TV and see a lot of advertising by the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Investments, and the thing they started to call the policy of the one window, which is whenever an investor comes to Egypt in order to get all the certificates or the regulations from one place. I mean, there used to be a comparison, I've read it a couple of days, that there is a very huge delay in giving, unfortunately, the foreign investors the approval of working in Egypt. And this is one of the things, I mean, I do not longer see any ads from the Ministry of Investment. I've read that, we've heard all that there used to be these kinds of investment centers or that helps the investors and all of these things. So where is this? I mean, one of the things that we can rarely see right now. I mean, one of the things that it gives prosperity to United Arab Emirates, for example, is that the formulations of a company with the residence and the acquiring of a head office, this happens in 48 hours.
Yeah, definitely.
To 72 hours.
We go for a short break. After she'll be coming back. Stay tuned to us, don't go away. And we're back again. We're still with our guest, Dr. Ashraf Saleh. And there is a lot yet to talk about. We mentioned the investment, but also I'd like to, talking about industry, for instance, and talking about encouraging the work of not so big entities. Definitely here, or every economy relies on SMEs, small and medium industries. What is the situation here in Egypt with the small and medium industries?
This is a very hard question, unfortunately. Actually, the majority of the country all over the world right now, stopped talking about the SMEs. They started to speak about micro SMEs, which means they even started to include smaller level of SMEs, especially one of the things that maybe not too many people knows about, that China, for example, relies on the micro SMEs. There is a huge of family business rather than this very big giant. They have a little bit of big projects, but however, the majority are the micro SMEs. So, I'm not sure. I'm not quite happy with the experience of the micro SMEs in Egypt. Couple of months ago we started, or maybe a year ago, we started talking about the financial inclusion and how to approach the people who are not using banking facility or banking instrument to become a part of the systems.
Yeah.
This is from one side to help them proceed a little bit. But from the other side is to try to include part of what we call the underground or the shadow economy.
Well, there's a lot, actually, there is a lot of, let's say, like work that goes this way, and then not everybody will be included, even if you try to include them. Is it, how do you do that?
You have to change the culture, you have to change the mind. People have a fear of the government. People have always a fear of the government, of the tax authority, and the things that comes to any mind of those people is just if you go to the bank and open a bank account, the first thing that happens is that the tax authority is going to rub your blood, and the government is going to take, and so and so and so and so. So the Egyptians really were not really encouraged to participate in these kinds of advisors or in these kinds of gathering in order to become a part of the banking systems. On the other hand, there are many countries who's done a better experience. I mean, we are just 102 to 104 million. India with 1.4 billions, China with 1.3 something billions. They have stopped dealing in cash. It's by law. I mean, if you go to do a haircut, you have to pay with a card. If you have to ride the metro, you have to do it with a card. I mean, it's compulsory. I mean, we said here that dealing with the government in the amounts that exceeds 15,000 should be subject or should be executed using a debit or a credit cards.
Yeah.
But still, up to this point of time, no. Not every single transactions above 15,000 in the Egyptian governorate is doing or being executed with a card. I mean, it's not a matter of 15,000. It's a matter of any single transactions has to be executed using a card. If you do something like this, if you do a law like this, this means that nobody in Egypt can do any kind of activity except with the card.
Or change the currency? Maybe like, or this is not
changing the currency may give face in the Egyptian currency, which we have reached somehow. I mean, we've been a little bit afraid of the dollarizations after the revolution and the returning back to the fixed exchange rate regime in 2013, and people were fighting just to accumulate and to acquire US dollars, but I think we've broadened this. But currently, I mean, changing the currency, it's a matter of a very costly activity rather than, I mean, it's not going to be as fruitful as its causes, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure that this might be the right option right now. I mean,
but changing it to cards, not everybody has cards. Some, that too, has a downside. Like if you decide,
not everyone. I mean, the amount of people that are just using cards in Egypt is not more than 28% of the overall populations. I mean, some people do not have ID cards. Some people do not have phones. Some people do not have any of the. So imagine when you are asking them to have a credit card or a debit card. I mean, if you have a problem and you need a plumber, imagine that when the plumber comes to you and you're asking him, okay, this is my credit card, take your amount.
No, he said, I want money, like, ma'am, I just don't
so
take
this is the problem.
Definitely.
I mean, he doesn't want to do this because any activity that he's going to do is going to be recorded.
Yeah.
And there is always a fear that he's going to be subject to tax authority. So this is one of the things that made him not very funding or not going through opening a bank account. But if it becomes a compulsory activity, if it becomes something eligible for every single human being in Egypt, no deal with money, like China, 1.3 billions. We are just 102.
And they're controlling that. I mean, nobody can just get...
They are controlling, they are analyzing the spending of each regions to know how the regions usually spends the money. So a little bit of customizing the facilities, the helping technicalities according to their spendings. I mean, they are doing a lot.
So you would advise something like this? This is a very good step, to include those who are in the gray zone.
I definitely would advise something like this. I mean, stop dealing with the Egyptian, with the cash, and force those people to use cards.
They will come up, from the shadows. And
they will come even from the underground, and they will do everything that they can to acquire cards. And once they acquire the card, you are going to force them to have an identity card. And if they have an identity card and a card, I think that the majority of their transactions and financial and economical performance may be monitored. I mean, if you cannot clear 100% of the transactions, at least reduce them.
Definitely. What about the people who are just like, now we know with the banks, if they just decrease the rate, now, like they have to have a card, of course, getting from their own, but what if they decide with a small, interest rate and they just withdraw the money?
So this is two different scenarios at the same time. From one side, you're asking to reduce the interest rates so that to induce the people to invest much more their money in the bank with the help of investing centers, with the help of mutual funds. This is a part.
Yeah.
But the other part is to induce the people to have a card. Having a card does not mean that you should have money in your card. Card is only a way of paying and receiving any kind of money by those peoples. But there is always a fear that those people would not enter the legitimate, legal financial sector in Egypt with the kind of governmental fear of attacking them or taking part of their money or of their income and so on.
Exactly. There are lots of mind frames that should change, but then also, like when you look at it, for example, the vegetable seller or the fruit seller, they're not
imagine, how can you force them to...
Very difficult when we think of that, And you said the plumbers and, lots of services are being made. Actually, they're never just work with a card. So that's far-reached. But evaluating generally, like, as we said, like day by day, but then like we went a long way from 2011, 2013, and then, to now. How do you see things going? How do you see Egypt also like the poor and, trying to just cater to the poor? I mean, I know it's very hard and there are lots of things to be done, but then there are just new housing to lead a dignified life to many who were in shabby areas, and winter is coming and the rain, all that we heard. The problems, of course, about them being in the open or in broken places, but instead of that we have now, like apartments and furnished apartments for them and more that is being done.
Yeah, I think that the government has made a substantial effort in this part. I mean, in the last couple of years, a huge new, I don't say we can call them compounds, or this is the kinds of, not the same level.
For all, places
Instead of living in just any place, they are all now available to be migrated to others. But the problem is the Egyptians would need a substantial change right now, and this cannot be done. I mean, any country that passes through a kind of revolutions, there should be stagnant period, a long period just to recover. Yeah. But the problem is that this period, unfortunately, left some of the poor people made some of the poor people a little bit poorer. So I know that we have to sacrifice just to pass through the coming part. But still we have to have a better eye for those people. I cannot ask to be left like this. Definitely the government should give a little bit more of interest and more of caring about those kind of people, definitely, yes.
But then the situation is really hard. Going through with two revolutions, and then even if you want to just stand still, you cannot do that. The world is going there.
Two revolutions, caring about the people, or implementing or investing in the infrastructures with this kind of roads and bridges that you can see everything is being under reconstruction, renovations in Egypt. So, it's really hard. It's really hard.
It's like when we were just asking before, it's like, should we start one phase after the other? Or should we at the beginning, or all at the same time simultaneously?
Actually, this is one of my problem with the Egyptian government. I kept on saying this for ages, and I'm going to repeat it. I think that when there is an ill person, there is a sick person going to a doctor's, the doctors, when treating the sick person, should start with the most illness organ, then proceed to the others. But what we can see right now is that the Egyptian government is actually dealing with all the sickness and illness at the same time. So is this good or bad? there are
with one organ that is not
yes,
functioning, it
yeah.
affects other
I
organs.
mean,
so you have
which
to do
which
work
one
with
you have to
everything.
start is the high blood pressure or the diabetes, which you
Or the
have to start
coagulation,
with.
the blood that is caused by high
yeah,
blood
I mean,
pressure.
because sometimes when you're fixing the blood pressures, you are making the
Other
diabetes
problems,
problems.
definitely.
So,
Sometimes, you have
so
other
unfortunately,
problems.
here we do have two scenarios. One of the scenarios that says that after revolutions and with the kind of people like the Egyptians, the best thing is to do everything at the same time.
Yeah.
But from another parts, I mean, prioritizations is one of the most significant. If you see economists definitely will go to prioritization.
But
I mean,
do we have the luxury of time? That's the thing. And you have
you don't have the luxury
Egyptians are
of
just,
time,
you know,
you
yeah.
don't have the luxury of finance, you don't have the luxury of cultures, so compromise. Just make a compromisation. See what things should be left and what is the things that you should start up with.
Or should we just, go, as you said, like it's the harder choice.
It's the harder choice.
With the security situation
Yeah,
around us,
and you have to accept that many peoples has to be left aside or left apart when you're doing everything at once.
And trying to help them, but then it's like it's not easy. You cannot do everything. It's like you're giving your attention to everything that collapse suddenly, and then it's really a very difficult situation.
It is.
But
it is
are we going?
I mean, definitely we are improving. Nobody can doubt about this.
Yeah.
But the problem is, how long would it take until the poor persons see that some fruit falls out of what we are doing? This is one of the things that we hope it will come soon. Otherwise, unfortunately, the gap or the income gap in the Egyptian regions is going to expand, and I don't think this is one of the favorable circumstances.
Hopefully, all works out right. Since the government is
so.
working all in all directions, actually.
Definitely.
Dr. Ashraf, thank you very much for being with us.
You're most
you honored
welcome.
us with your presence, and we know that we brought you from Alexandria.
Yep.
Yep. So we'll bring you again, please. Allow us, to just.
I'll do my best.
If you enjoyed our
Definitely,
session.
I'm enjoying.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like also to thank our viewers and our guests on the phone. We'll see you again next week, as we always end. God bless our country, Egypt. God bless Egyptians. God bless our president. God bless the army. God bless the police. God bless the world. And also, as we end, ادخلوها بسلام إن شاء الله آمنين. Enter Egypt, God willing, safe. And Mubarak Shabi Misr from the Holy Bible. I'm Nermin Azim. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Goodbye for now.